Gather, my children. I am Superpoly, the lore connoisseur, and I have been called from my eternal slumber by the fates themselves, so that I might share the beauties of card lore with the wider world. Translation? I'm finally making this video because I can't sleep. You didn't ask for it, you may not even need it, but you're goddamn welcome. We start with the basics. What is lore? A card's lore is its story, and also anything that card might be based on. Sometimes card arts tell stories, and sometimes cards are inspired by existing stories or themes, or hatred. Narratives and inspirations. Simple, right? When I say card lore, you probably think of those monsters who appear on lots of other cards, like Yugioh, Marauding Captain, and Warrior Digrapher. That, or you think of the game's big multi-archetype narratives like the Dual Terminal storyline, or Draco lore, or the World Legacy lore. Or you think of shit like Burning Abyss and Cosmo, which kinda tells stories within their card artworks, but whose lore is more based on the stories they themselves are representing. Well, all those lores, while famous and rightly so, are nowhere near the only ones in Yu-Gi-Oh! Honestly, you'd be hard-pressed to find an archetype or series of cards that didn't have its own personal lore, in narrative or in inspiration, and most of the time you can find ways to connect almost every card to others, with varying degrees of success and credibility, but generally speaking, most of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Card lore does or can exist in a single universe, or multiverse, or whatever the fuck. More on that in another video. So to recap, card lore consists of narratives and inspirations, and it's a factor in the designs of most cards. But how do you actually go about learning it? Well, see, in card games like, what's a card game? In card games like Magic, you have stories written on the official website, dozens of them seems like, dated, regularly updated, crediting their authors, that's pretty cool. You have narration, dialogue, real ass shit. You have character profiles, location profiles, related cards, friends and foes, holy shit. Well, guess what? Yu-Gi-Oh! Lore has none of that. No official website, no articles, nothing frequent, nothing dated or credited, nothing so well written or well organized. What Yu-Gi-Oh! Lore does have is books that come out every 3 or so years. There's like 20 pages of lore in each of them, and it's all basic ass shit. We don't even know who half the main characters' parents are. And not in the Turkish drama way, I mean we never find out. The lore books are only guaranteed to cover plot essentials, and even then they sometimes skimp out. And character details are usually left to our imaginations. The writing quality ranges from atrocious to meme-worthy to slightly tolerable, as like a story you might hear by a fire, not as any kind of published narrative. Which is where we lore lovers come in. My passion here is to take these shoddy narratives and piece them together into theories and stories I find entertaining. To be clear, I was fucking drooling at the quality of Magic lore and the care that's so clearly given to it, not only in presentation, but in writing. And I'm not gonna say some dumb shit like, yeah, but we get room to theorize because they don't spell all the details out for us. Theories exist wherever good writing exists. They can just also exist with bad writing too, and that's where we're at. Really, the reason I like Yu-Gi-Oh! Card lore is because I like Yu-Gi-Oh! And because I'm a fledgling writer who wants even her hobbies to center around her craft. This hobby's lore is no masterpiece, it's just fun. And given how lacking the writing often is, I'm glad that we have a lot of space to theorize so the stories can be mostly our own. This is a great pitch! I'm sure you're all completely sure that this is what you want to spend your time exploring now. Anyway, if you think you still want to keep going with this, I want to note that I think it's important to operate within the framework of what's given to us, to pay respect to canon in our card lore analyses. So like, fanfic obviously can do whatever the hell it wants, but if you're talking lore analysis, canon's still kind of important. Otherwise, you might as well just make up your own completely original stories or go analyze something that's not shit. So as far as card lore goes, I personally treat the shit like a pyramid, with the most credible info on the higher levels. At the top, you have a canon. It's split into what I like to call hard canon, or official releases, and soft canon, or the bare basics of card names, artworks, and flavor texts. Under that is theory, people's own ideas of how the above might interact, based on patterns and trends within canon. And at the very bottom is headcanon. That's just what you make up to fill in whatever gaps are left so you can tell a coherent narrative, if you're into that kind of thing. Generally speaking, it's a bad idea to try to delve into any of these sections if you're not well grounded in the ones above them. Theories presented without a mind to canon are obviously going to be flawed, and headcanons that conflict with theory-level logic are cute, but you didn't come here to learn how to be cute. You came here to learn how to be correct. So let's go through these in more detail, because god fuck, there's so much more detail. The primary hard canon sources for card lore are the master guides, official strategy and lore guides which, as I mentioned earlier, are released in Japan every 3 or so years, namely after the end of every Yu-Gi-Oh anime series. Currently, there are 6 master guides, 5 numbered ones and a dual terminal master guide written to expand upon the franchise's biggest multi-archetype storyline. If you want to read the master guides, you can find them all on the Yugioh Wikia, or you can check the description or click the link on the screen. Now I know what you might be thinking. The Yugioh Wikia? The lore there is awful! Unsourced, poorly edited, barely coherent, and missing enormous chunks. You're probably not saying any of that, because who gives a shit? But yeah, that's how it used to be. With the help of a few friends though, I've been putting up the master guides that the wiki is missing, and I'm updating the grammar and coherence on all 6 guides' translations. Not gonna say they're perfect, but it's an ongoing effort. I'll probably be going through the pages forever to make sure that the translations are still accurate. And anyone who knows Japanese, feel free to reach out if you'd like to contribute to the project. Anyway, the master guides are the essential text for anyone looking to learn about lore. If I may be so pretentious, you cannot have an informed opinion about most card lores without the information from the master guides. The only other major hard canon publications are things like the Gagaga Academy Tospedia and the Tales of the Noble Knights. Random shit Konami's published, all of which can also be found on the Yu-Gi-Oh! Wikia. If any major hard canon texts are released in the future, you'll be able to find links to them in this video's description, and I'll probably create at least one video about every single one of them at some point or another. So those are the texts that are dedicated to lore information. And aside from them, the only other hard canon info is just in snippets, little bits of text scattered across official announcements, and in franchise promotional products like the V-Jump magazine, the Valuable Book, booster pack guides, and descriptions of products like booster sets and structure decks, and none of these words mean anything to anyone. They're just examples of places where sometimes we've seen snippets of hard canon information. I'll be making a video where I go over any of those that I found too. As of November 2017, when this video is going up, there's no comprehensive archive of all the hard canon snippets, but the organization's consolidated a bunch of them under their card lore search tag. You might have to sift through some fluff though. And that's all that hard canon is. The cold hard facts about card lore. Thing is, most of our time analyzing lore is not spent on hard canon, since for one thing, it basically spells shit out for us, so there's not really much to try to analyze. But more importantly, because there's a 3-year wait between master guides, and none of the other hard canon publications are predictable or consistent. So we spend the time between master guides going over theories, more on that later, and soft canon, the bare basics of card names, artworks, and flavor texts. I call these soft because they are open to some degree of interpretation. Let's use Shaddoll Fusion to illustrate soft canon's main points. First off, it is still canon. There's only so much you can interpret in a name, artwork, or flavor text before you're flat out wrong. You cannot, for instance, see Shaddoll Winda here and say that it's calm. So it's decisively canon in that sense. Basic shit. That said, only the bare information counts as soft canon. This card's name is Shaddoll Fusion. This card's artwork depicts Shaddoll Winda without her mount, interacting with the Naturia sacred tree while Leo and Pilica watch her. Anything about what they're feeling, or why they're doing what they're doing, or when they're doing it, or even how exactly they're doing it, those are all details. And details are never proven by soft canon. They're theories until they're addressed by hard canon. For example, Shaddoll Fusion's Japanese name is, Kami no Utsushimito no Sesshoku. I butchered that anyway. This means contact with the embodiment of God. That's a fact. That's what the name means. The canon element of that, then, is that there's an embodiment of a god, and contact is being made to it. But it's still soft canon because even though we have to accept that it happened exactly as it says it did, the name tells us nothing of who's doing the contacting, or what the embodiment is, or which god it's embodying. The answers to questions like that may seem obvious to us sometimes, but we can't know them for sure until they're spelled out for us. So soft canon's purpose can't be to prove those details. Those details are either theories, or they're already hard canon and we don't have to worry about soft canon proving them. To expand on that, hard canon will always supersede soft canon. Obvious, but it has to be stated. If hard canon exists that contradicts what you think is obvious in a card name, flavor text, or artwork, even as a bare basic thing and not a detail, the hard canon will take precedence. Shaddoll Fusion's name may make it seem pretty obvious that there's a fusion happening in the scene involving at least one Shaddoll, but hard canon's told us that the only thing happening lore-wise is Winda using her divine aura to access the tree and boot up the cliff fort as per Tiara's will. Nerd shit, yay! Anyway, hard canon tells us what's happening in the scene, and it's not a fusion, so the fusion aspect of the name is superseded by what hard canon tells us. So basically, there's always a chance that when the hard canon comes out, it'll expand on soft canon in a way other than what we might think is the most obvious. So it's still canon, still due the same amount of respect and analysis, but only in the bare information it presents. Anything further and we move into theory. By this point, you can probably tell that there's a lot left to the lore lover's imagination, and that you'll have to make educated guesses about most elements of card lore. Hard canon is very rare, and soft canon isn't enough to do much with other than to say it exists, so theories are your best friend as a lore lover. Honestly, that's going to be the most important skill to hone when analyzing card lore. The ability to build your own logical interpretations of card names, artworks, and interactions, and what they all might say about their stories. A proper grasp of theory is most important because theory is what will make up most of your lore discussion. And while our theories may vary in their specifics, they should still all be bound to rules of logic and internal consistency. Our freedom to theorize so extensively also means that everyone's going to end up having a different narrative. For 3 years at a time, we get cards with basically no hard canon to tell us anything definitive about their overall narratives. So to turn those soft canon details into coherent stories, you'll have to be content with coming up with your own theories, while always staying cautious about not contradicting canon or posing your theories as truths. Everyone has a narrative, but no one has the narrative. That's one reason I love the lore so much. The major parts of it revolve around telling your own stories and hearing those of others. It's a huge groupthink, a hive of wild mass guessing. There are card lore theory discussions on basically every major Yu-Gi-Oh forum, and I suggest reading through them and even starting your own on the forums you like once you've familiarized yourself with the canon. Every time canon information comes out, a lot of theories are confirmed, but many more are rendered obsolete just by simple math. There will always be tons of theories about any one thing, but when the canon comes out, only one will be completely correct, so get into lore expecting that. The Yugioh Wikia's trivia sections can also provide information for anyone coming up with theories, but since the wiki relies on community updates, it's often incomplete, and since anyone can edit it, it's sometimes flat out wrong. I wouldn't suggest ignoring or dismissing it though, just using it and making sure to fact check with canon and other people. And hey, maybe you can contribute your own observations, or if you're caught up on the canon, your own theories. Also, if I can be biased for a minute, the Yu-Gi-Oh subreddit, r/Yu-Gi-Oh, is a great place to discuss lore, as is its Discord server, both linked. There's a lore channel there where we're basically always talking about card storylines, inspirations, and theories. It's pretty nice. And I created r/Yu-Gi-Oh lore a while back and never really advertised it, so guess that's happening right now. Go there, do things, yay! And eventually, you reach the point where you have well-grounded theories on whatever topic's in question, and what's left for you is to just make shit up to fill in the blanks in your narrative, with all the knowledge you have on all the aforementioned lore elements. Just like, go crazy! Wee! Headcanon! You made it! There's a lot more to say on this subject, and this really was a basic-ass introduction, but it should be good enough to help you get your start in lore. I'll be dedicating this channel to videos about lore analysis, and also eventually to videos about the game itself. Dual commentaries, discussions of the different elements of the game and its community, all that. Maybe some more creative endeavors, if I'm confident enough to put those out there. So if you're subscribing solely for lore, just know that there will be other shit here too. I just cut my potential sub count in half, didn't I? Whatever. That's all for now, my children. See you next time. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video. Leave a comment if you have anything to add, or if you want to tell me how this video changed your life. Leave criticism if you want me to gain sustenance and forever improve in quality. Bye.